Wowie. Wow. That's all I got to say. That's going to be this entire episode is just wow. This past week 6, was an absolute adventure in good ways and bad ways. We had blowouts like we predicted. We had competitive matches, which, we saw being a little competitive from the get-go. There were a lot of outcomes that I don't think anybody predicted. And there are some injuries that are going to let some teams down this week. And that is probably the biggest takeaway by far that we have going on, of course, for week 7 is all these injuries and the insane amount of activity that's going to be going on. And I feel like it's almost like a good thing, Like it's not completely just like terrible, the fact that we have all of these waiver options. Now, of course, if you were on a team that had a bunch of issues with, players getting injured on your team, then yeah, that's not going to be good. But those of us who had an injury or two, and we were a little bit worried about what the waivers were going to look like, I don't think we're in a terrible shape right now. I mean, the teams that are on bye are okay teams, not great teams that have a ton of fantasy options. I mean, you do have the Ravens, but I mean, outside of Mark Andrews and of course, Lamar Jackson, I don't think you're starting like Hollywood Brown every week. So it's not terrible. There are plenty of options out there for you guys, which could actually skew, guys and girls, I should say, which could actually skew, how everything is going to happen for these waivers. I don't think that there is necessarily a clear-cut option out there for the waivers. I think that you can actually go out there and place 5% on a guy and have a good chance of getting him. We've seen a ton of injuries line up time and time again over this weekend over this past 6 weeks, as to where, a lot of these teams have already wasted a bunch of the waiver wire fab, So when we sit there and we go back and we look at some of these, different options, you got to go check out your league, right? You got to go check out who actually has that waiver wire fab. Who spent it all, and those guys that do have the fab still left in there, what are they actually like, what do they need? Do they have an injury big time on their team or not? So make sure you guys go check that out. This is normally something that occurs in like week 15 or week 14, even week 13, but it's happening earlier this year because of the fact that there were so many injuries prior to this. So make sure that you guys go check it out before you just go throw $30 on a guy, and hell, the rest of your league doesn't even have that. So let's go ahead and hop into this episode and talk about some of these guys that could end up being out, like Miles Sanders. He's believed to be out although he's still questionable, he's believed to be out for this Thursday night matchup up against the Giants. Then we have Ertz, who's going to be out. Mostert's going to be out. Jonnu Smith, I believe, is still a question mark, along with Mixon. So, yeah, it was a tough week. But let's dive into the quarterbacks first. And instead of going through, a whole big segment with this, we have so many different guys I got to cover. So I'm kind of going to fly through this to an extent. But on the bye, we got Lamar Jackson, we got Ryan Fitzpatrick, we got Kirk Cousins, we got Phillip Rivers. Honestly, the only major starter, from this lineup was probably Lamar Jackson, although Ryan Fitzpatrick could have been in there. So the first thing I want to do is I want to check and see, who's going to be actually on my waiver wires, who's available that are heavily rostered, and other ones. Like Teddy Bridgewater's a great one. Gardner Minshew, who he had a little bit of a rough week this past week, is still overall a good option because of that schedule coming up. And then, of course, you have Joe Burrow, who I don't really feel safe playing week to week, but I believe he does have the Browns this week, so we could see a decent week out of him. And then, of course, you have Justin Herbert. So I'm going to check that first. If those guys aren't there, I'm going to go directly to Derek Carr. And Derek Carr, he's actually been relatively usable so far this season. He's had 2 weeks with below 20 fantasy points, but he's had 3 weeks with over 20 fantasy points. So Derek Carr, who has an insane schedule following Tampa Bay, they've got Cleveland, they've got the Chargers, which is a little bit tougher, Denver, Kansas City, which he'll still need to pass, Atlanta, and then the Jets. Oh, man, if Derek Carr is out there, man, I'm going to try and pick him up when it comes to waiver wire priority. Now, when it comes to fab, I don't know if anybody's going to spend a ton of money on him, but check out the Lamar Jackson owners and the Ryan Fitzpatrick owners rosters and see how much fab they have left. If you're somebody that streams quarterbacks, though, man, 4 of the next 6 matchups are like a wet dream pretty much. So I love Derek Carr going forward. I think that having Ruggs at full health helps out significantly. I mean, it's a night and day difference. So I'm hopping on this bandwagon. I've already been on this bandwagon since the offseason, since the beginning of last year. I mean, if he had 2 more points per game in each game, then he would have finished out as the quarterback 8. So yeah, I'm taking Derek Carr in a lot of different lineups where I'm going to have to, either stream quarterbacks or one of my quarterbacks got injured. And I'm even trading for him in some cases. I mean, some people are trying to sell high on Derek Carr. I think it's a buy. Even in Dynasty, I want to buy him. I mean, he's like, 29 years old? I like Derek Carr moving forward. Now, Wentz is another guy that's not rostered near enough leagues for those season-long leagues. He's 10th ranked quarterback on the season, 9th in some, different scoring variances. So now he's not going to have Sanders, right? So he might have to throw more often. And then this morning I woke up to Randall Memphis Young. You can find him at DWZ Memphis on Twitter. He put up a post this morning. He said, Wentz is on pace for 4,500 passing yards and rushing is a ton. He has a ton of rushing yards already. I believe he's almost like 200 or something. But anyways, they get the Giants on Thursday. Then he has 10 days rest for the Cowboys. Then a bye week. Following that, he has Alshon Jeffrey coming back, Deshaun Jackson coming back, maybe Rager coming back, and they don't face a top 10 pass defense for the rest of the season. That's absolutely incredible. If you're somebody that has Wentz under waiver wires, I'm going to throw a significant amount at him, and I normally stream quarterbacks, but he's worth a pickup. I'm talking about close to 20-25% of your fab if he's out there. He's owned in almost no leagues. It's crazy to me. He's a must own. It blows my mind that he's so low. He has such low ownership. Now, oh man, Tua. Tua's a big name on the tip of everybody's tongues. And honestly, for season-long leagues, I'm not going to pick him up. I'm not going to waste my fab. Now, 2 quarterback, I can understand it. Dynasty, of course, he should already be owned. But when it comes to redraft leagues, you're not going to be able to play him for 2 weeks and feel good about it. He has a bye, obviously, this week, and then he has the Rams, who are one of the best defenses in the league. And honestly, I don't understand the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick benching and starting Tua. I mean, you have the Rams, they're the best pass defense in the NFL, or if not top 3. And you got Aaron Donald that you got to worry about, man. That's tough. That's a tough matchup. I don't like that at all. I'm going to sit there and fade Tua big time. My guess is the fact that they're going to give Tua an opportunity, but it's going to be up against a really tough matchup. And they're winning right now with Fitzpatrick. So if he does poorly, then they can say, oh, we're going to put Fitzpatrick back in. He got hit a bunch of times. We're going to wait for him to develop. And later in the season, if Fitzpatrick does have a bad week, they can defend their choice in leaving him as the starter by saying, hey, we tried to play Tua earlier in the season. It didn't work out. We're going to give him the offseason to really get prepped and get into football shape. So, we're going to leave Fitzpatrick in there. That's the only thing that really makes sense to me, because it just doesn't make sense. I'd rather, start Tua up against a team like the Jets, for example, with 1 week of preparation versus the Rams with 2 weeks of preparation. I know they want to see what they have, but, it is what it is. Now, if he goes off and by the way, crushes the Rams, then they look like geniuses anyway, and they're going to end up rolling with Tua. But I think that they wanted to make sure that, of course, Fitzpatrick had the right opportunity. Man, following that, they got Arizona too. I'm looking at the schedule. They got Arizona, who looked really good up against the Cowboys last night, and they're getting better each and every week on defense. Then they got the Chargers, who I believe are like 10th ranked defense up against the pass or up against the quarterback. Yeah, there's only one way that I'm chasing Tua, and that's going to be in like 2 quarterback leagues or very, very deep leagues where, you might have to get some I guess, deeper opportunity, like 16-team leagues. Now, on the running back side, like we talked about, we have Miles Sanders, we had Raheem Mostert, we have Dalvin Cook. Joe Mixon could have missed some time. Melvin Gordon with the illness, although I don't know if that's going to affect anything moving forward. I'm guessing that it's not. And then, of course, we have still the injuries to Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Mark Ingram. Oh, that Mark Ingram was a new one. Leonard Fournette, which I believe he's going to play this upcoming week. Sonny Michel with the illness, he should play this upcoming week. Dude, it's just like injury after injury after injury. We're getting crushed this year, guys. We're getting crushed. So, of course, the first guy I want to look at is Justin Jackson to see if he's out there and pick him up. I mean, if he's out there, he needs to be played. They have Jacksonville this week, and we saw what Swift was able to do. But wait for tomorrow's episode at 8 o'clock tomorrow night with Joshua Kelly, right? Because I'm going to do some research, and I think I'm going to actually drop Joshua Kelly's name on on the guys that could be moved on from after the waiver wire pickups. I think that Joshua Kelly actually has a great matchup. So wait for that. I still need to do the research on that. But yeah, I'm going to bring up Giovanni Bernard. Mixon might miss some time. So Gio, if he does miss some time, I'm going to wait to see what happens, what the reports are. Obviously, I did this segment a little bit earlier today, so maybe the report's are already out. But I'm going to wait to see what happens. And if he's out, I'm playing Giovanni Bernard. I think that he could absolutely go off up against Cleveland. It's not going to be like, you're not going to see like a 2-touchdown, 150-yard game or anything like that. But he's a huge pass catcher, right? And they tend to give up some yards to the pass catcher. So I'm expecting to see something around the lines of 6 to 8 receptions for like 60 yards receiving, along with 40 yards, 50 yards on the ground, which is more than viable for a flex option over there in Cincinnati. I'm not going to be sitting there and dropping a major asset for him or anything like that. But if you have an open roster spot, I think he's definitely worth a pickup, and I think that you can actually play him this week. Boston Scott's another guy that you can pick up and play, but he's actually in a better situation. So I like Boston Scott over Giovanni Bernard as a waiver wire pickup. They have the Giants, who are okay on the ground, but very porous up against pass-catching running backs. They're allowing almost 8 yards per reception to the running back position. Half the team is missing from the Eagles right now. So Scott could actually be a focal point of this offense. We saw that last year when he went down with Miles Sanders. I could expect to see that again this upcoming week with Miles Sanders expected to miss this Thursday night game. So I'm going to brush through some of these other obvious names like J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. I wouldn't drop prominent guys for them. They're still going to use 3 running backs with Justice Hill, and they have a bye week. So, Ingram could be back by week 8, but they're still worth a pickup just in case. Jermichael Hasty and, of course, Jerick McKinnon. I'm cautious about playing them this week. They're up against New England, who's third up against the running backs. And I know that Philip Lindsay just put up over 100 yards on him, but it took him 23 attempts in order to do so in a surprising, Denver-esque blowout. Still, they should be rostered. Frank Gore and LaMichael Piron should both be rostered as well. So yeah, add them if you need help, but I'm not really excited to play them or anything. I think that they should be added, though, and they should be rostered. Now, the guy that I really do like in deep leagues and in dynasty leagues is Ty Johnson over there. I saw that he had 3 carries for 42 yards, and everybody was sitting there saying that it was, one of his carries went for 34 yards. That's great. That's what you want from Ty Johnson. The kid is explosive, right? And the Jets need explosive players. Like, they need explosion back there because their offensive line is terrible. They're typically in game-losing situations, right? Negative game script. I think that Ty Johnson could actually be that guy who can break off those 34 yards, which we love. And, of course, we have Adam Gase over there who, had this crush on Kalen Ballage, who had a ton of, athleticism. Watching Ty Johnson in school was impressive, to say the least. And I know that he's just a 6th-round pick, but he has that upside. So Ty Johnson, for me, is actually a pickup for the deep flyer leagues in redraft. And in Dynasty, I think he's a must-own going forward. We talked about it last week with Beasley on the show. I think that he's a must-own in Dynasty. So there's one guy that I'm not going to be chasing that's at the top of people's list right now, and that's J.D. McKissic. You pretty much never know when to play him. And they've got Dallas this week. And I talked about it on my DFS show for Monday. Dallas is actually really phenomenal at bottling up pass-catching running backs and preventing them from getting yards. They're actually one of the best teams in the league at doing so. And yeah, we saw it up against Chase Edmonds, of course, this past week. Now, the other thing with J.D. McKissic is the fact that he's a roster clog. A roster clog is somebody that you don't know when you're going to play him. You might play him 1 or 2 weeks a year, but they never really have that big time upside that you're hoping for. They're never going to have that 25-point game because they're either in a timeshare or they lack, a certain je ne sais quoi. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to say it anyways. Now, they lack a certain level of explosiveness or playmaking ability to get you 2 or 3 touchdowns. Now, J.D. McKissic is a great receiving back, and I'm not trying to knock him in deep leagues. Sure, I'll pick him up, but I don't want to chase him because he's going to lock up your roster. And when you have a guy that could be a flyer on the back end, like a Ty Johnson, who offers the upside, where you could see him, becoming a running back 1 in certain weeks, I don't think that J.D. McKissic really has that same upside on a regular basis. He's still splitting snaps with Antonio Gibson, and Antonio Gibson is a better running back. He really is. Not to mention, like I said, Dallas is good at bottling up those pass-catching running backs. Antonio Gibson is the inside runner over there and should have a great game up against Dallas, opening up an opportunity for him to actually take over a majority snap share. Right now, they're about 50-50, which I don't really understand. You got a young team. You got a young running back. It's time to get him work, get him in the game. So that's going to wrap it up for the running backs. On to the wide receivers. All right, we got Adam Thielen on a bye, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal, and Marquise Hollywood Brown, which are probably all owned in about 60 or 7% of the leagues at least. So first thing I'm going to do is look for Travis Fulgham because that's my baby, man. Fulgham is my baby. I've been shouting it from the mountaintops. I love it, and he's got the Giants this week. I'm a little bit concerned about the Bradbury shadow, but honestly, Bradbury doesn't really travel to the slot all that often. Meanwhile, that's where, of course, Fulgham gets the majority of his snaps. I know that he has, some of these players coming back, but I think that like Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson could actually help stretch the field. Meanwhile, offering him a higher target percentage underneath, or more efficiency, I should say. Maybe not a higher target percentage, but more efficiency. I like Fulgham moving forward. He's proved that he can be that guy, and he can compete with some of the best cornerbacks. I love Fulgham going forward, especially in dynasty leagues. I'm going to try and get him before he's out of the price range, and unable to acquire. Alshon Jeffrey's going to be gone after this year. Deshaun Jackson will likely be gone after this year. It's going to be Jalen Reagor, maybe Tim Hightower. Is it Tim Hightower? Hightower. And then, of course, you have Fulgham in the slot. So I like Fulgham, man, as that big slot receiver. I feel very similar with Tim Patrick as a guy that you must own, but I'm not as excited about his matchup this week. So I'm still kind of holding to an extent before I put too much fab on him. He's still worth the look, though. He's been fantasy relevant since Sutton went down, and he can actually be the wide receiver one in this offense as teams continue to focus on stopping Jerry Jeudy. So, yeah, I'm not selling the farm for Tim Patrick. I'm not going out and putting 20% or even 30% of my fab on him because I don't know how big his upside is, but I still want him on my roster for those advantageous matchups. I mean, Drew Lock has shown that he likes Tim Patrick, and, dating back to last year, Tim Patrick was a good piece of this offense where he had fantasy viable weeks. So, yeah, if you're in a jam, I would go and acquire Tim Patrick, throw, 10% fab at him. But yeah, I'm not going to go out there and throw 20 or 30 like some of these people are talking about. Now, Christian Kirk and AJ Green have both risen from the dead. So hopefully you didn't drop them. And, I'm sitting there loving Christian Kirk in certain matchups while hating him in others. They're using him as a deep target. We saw that with what was it, like an 84-yard touchdown pass, whatever it was. He ended up having that big time pass, halfway through the game. And he always is going to have that upside, but he's not in the role that I actually want to see him in. So Christian Kirk does make me hesitant in certain matchups. However, I still want him on my roster. AJ Green, meanwhile, hell, he saw the targets of the first few games of the season. His targets dropped. Everybody talked about dropping him because Higgins is a guy. When you go back and you look up at those matchups, and then you look at Burrow's accuracy while targeting Green, it wasn't good at all. Like, Burrow was missing Green time and time and time again. Finally, they get on the same page with each other, and Green has an excellent game. Now, am I saying that he's going to be the number one option on that offense? No, I'm not. I think that, of course, you have Higgins over there who will have his weeks, and I think Boyd is probably going to finish out the year as the number one receiving option on that offense. But AJ Green is still going to give you flex numbers in the right matchups. And guess what? We have the Browns this week. The Cincinnati Bengals have the Browns. So, yes, AJ Green is worth a pickup and play. We saw Dallas absolutely destroy them, along with multiple other teams throughout the season. I'm loving AJ Green. And if we bounce back to Christian Kirk, oh, man, he caught fire. He caught fire last night, and I loved it. And looking forward, right, for his schedule, Kirk has the Seahawks this upcoming week. So I actually really like Christian Kirk in this upcoming week. I think that he's worth the fab to throw at. I'm willing to throw 20% on him because he's still going to be a part to this offense. This offense is getting extremely pass heavy. Although they're trying to run the ball, they still want to be a passing offense. I'm throwing 20% at Christian Kirk. Now, a few of these other guys, we have Mike Williams versus Jacksonville. This is matchup dependent and injury dependent with Keenan Allen potentially being out. So keep an eye on that. Mike Williams has been dropped by a lot of people. He should be coming, I believe he's on IR. He should be coming off IR. Either way, I believe he's healthy this week, and he's going to play versus Jacksonville. Meanwhile, we have Cole Beasley versus the Jets, and the Jets seem to struggle up against slot position, so I like Cole Beasley this week as well. And then we have some dart throws. We got Deshaun Jackson, who could be coming back. Rashad Perryman, who had like 4 receptions for 84 yards or something along those lines. We had Robinson, right, for the Chiefs, who, with Watkins out, looks like he's taking over that role. Corey Davis is coming off the COVID list. Marcus Johnson, by the way, huge shout out to Juan, who called this. Juan called this, flat off the bat and crushed it. You guys can go find him on Twitter at FF Juan of a Kind. FF Juan of a Kind. FF, one of a kind. Yeah, make sure you guys go check him out on Twitter, man. This guy is on fire. And honestly, I don't know why he doesn't have more followers. It blows my mind. This guy's impressive. The other guy who's a little bit of a dart throw, but I like moving forward as long as he's his two other receivers there, is Russell Gage. He does better when he's not the focal point. When he's that third option in the passing game, he does extremely well because teams can't focus on him. When he's not the focal, or when he is the focal point, he doesn't do nearly as well. They have Detroit this upcoming week, so I like Russell Gage, and I'm willing to throw a buck or two at him just to see if I can grab him for that price. There's so many different waiver options this week that I don't think anybody's going to be on Russell Gage as much, so I'm just going to throw a buck or two at him. When it comes to Preston Williams, right, he's another dart throw I might take a shot on in deeper leagues, and it's not because of his profile or his stats this year. Overall, he really has not been good. However, Devontae Parker could be missing some time, and Tua's coming in the door, who could potentially be a better quarterback. So in deeper leagues, I'm stashing Preston Williams, but just keep in mind he has some really tough matchups going forward. It's just worth watching for the future and for the connection or potential connection with Tua. So I am stashing him. I'm not playing him, up against the Rams or up against the Cardinals. Now, there is one guy I'm not going to spend a bunch of fab on that's high on every list, right? It's kind of how I like to do things. I like to talk about guys I don't like, and that's going to be Keelan Cole. I feel it's different every week for the wide receivers that will produce for Jacksonville. And the crazier part is I study these stats, I study these trends, I study these analytics, I study these matchups, and honestly, it's strange. I haven't found a rhyme or reason as to why these receivers produce each week. I thought it was going to be the deep threat this past week up against Detroit, or who they play, Miami. Either way, I had them going off. I had DJ Shark going off, who did see 14 targets. I believe he had a decent game, but Keelan Cole was the star in this matchup. And honestly, up against the slot position, the opposing team was actually pretty good. So I did not see Keelan Cole coming as somebody that I missed completely. I'm going to continue to look into it. I'm going to continue to study it. But I think I'm going to be off Keelan Cole until I figure out a trend going forward. I mean, I think it was week one, Keelan Cole went off, or maybe it was over the first 2 weeks, he had 3 touchdowns, but then he was completely quiet for the next few weeks. We saw Laviska Shenault, who had a great, stretch of games, and then he only had 10 yards this past week. So I need to figure this out before I actually move forward with it. And it could just be that Keelan Cole didn't play as much in the slot and I missed it. But yeah, I'm not going to mess with Keelan Cole and trying to throw a bunch of fab at it. There's just too many other good options when it comes to dart throws. And yeah, I'm all right as letting somebody else take him as a roster bomb. Somebody that will pick him up, play him, and then they end up having a bad week and give you a 0 and destroys their whole entire fantasy team. I'm more comfortable letting somebody else take the shot on that one. Now, when it comes to the tight end position, unfortunately, we had Jonnu Smith go out. We have Zach Ertz, who could miss 3 to 4 weeks, is what they're saying. Noah Fant was out. I think he's questionable to return this upcoming week, if I remember correctly. Dallas Goedert, who's saying they might be activated, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then, yeah, of course, Mo Alley-Cox, while Trey Burton went off over there in Indianapolis. On a bye, we do have Trey Burton. We have Irv Smith Jr., Mike Gesicki, and Mark Andrews. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and see if Goddard was dropped, right, because of the injury. He's the obvious pick here, and he should be. He's a very, very good, talented tight end in an offense that uses the tight ends. And, oh, my God, he's a focal point of that offense moving forward. Absolutely. Him and Fulgham are both going to be focal points. Now, even if he does not play this week, I still think that he needs to be owned. I'm cool with rostering 2 tight ends if you pick up Goddard now. Ertz really hasn't looked like himself all season, and Dallas Goedert is on the way up. I love Goddard moving forward for the Philadelphia Eagles. Plus, I like their schedule going forward up against the tight ends. Now, we keep seeing Fursker, right? He keeps getting in there. He keeps getting opportunities. He gets touchdowns every couple weeks. And, whenever Jonnu's out of the game and he comes in to give him a breather, they target him. And this offense, that's what they do. This offense is built to get the tight end open off a play action fake because they run the ball so much and increases the efficiency for Fursker. So I actually like Fursker moving forward as long as Jonnu Smith is out. I think that he's worth about a 5% fab bid on him. I'm not going to go all out, but 5% is good if you need a tight end, if you had Jonnu. Now, I'm still holding on to Jonnu. I'm not getting rid of him or anything like that. I don't think Jonnu is going to miss a crazy extended amount of time. I need to look a little bit more into that moving forward. But yeah, Fursker's worth 5%. My issue is knowing which weeks to play him. Now, Irv Smith Jr. is actually making some waves, which, gets me a little bit excited, right? But I'm not going to go out and go crazy. He has a bye this week, so you can go ahead and let him sit on the waivers. He'll probably be there next week for you. But Trey Burton, who also has a bye, he's looking to become like the focal point in this offense. I mean, I believe 2 weeks ago, he was like either second or tied for first in targets. And then this past week, he absolutely crushed it. He was my tight end of the week going into this week. I loved Trey Burton with this matchup. I think that it's a good thing that he has a bye, and I'm willing to pick him up as well, although he's not playing. But I'm not going to throw a bunch of fab at him. I think that you can get him super cheap. A lot of these teams in redraft don't actually they don't roster 2 tight ends very often. So it concerns me a little bit. Make sure you check out those guys that had like, the Jonnu Smiths and the Zach Ertz, and make sure they don't have a ton of fab or the backup tight ends. And if they don't, I'm only going to throw like maybe a few bucks at Burton, like maybe 5% of my fab, maybe 5%. It might even be something where I actually wait to see who's available post waivers, so I don't, ruin my waiver position or waste my fab on it. Like we talked about, guys, this is an injury-prone season. I mean, people are sitting there with no fab left, and it's only week 7. We're not even halfway through the year, and people have 0 fab left. So make sure you guys monitor that. I like Burton, but I'm not throwing a ton of fab at him. He has been injury-prone in the past as well, and he tends to disappear. But in this offense, I do like him moving forward. Logan Thomas as a streamer play, right? Logan Thomas has Dallas. And I don't love Logan Thomas. I don't love his efficiency. But if you're somebody that streams and you need an option on the back end, maybe you don't have any fab, Logan Thomas might be worth a late grab. Now, Hooper, I'm more so staying away from, right? Everybody's saying to pick up Hooper. It's his time. He has had 2 great weeks. And the thing is, like with Stefanski and his system, we just don't know when a tight end is actually going to produce. Like there's no way of telling. We went back and we looked at the numbers from last year, and it was crazy. It was like almost every week, it might have been every single week that Kyle Rudolph produced. So did Irv Smith Jr. And they were both on the same page. And nobody would have predicted both tight ends go off in the same week. And it wasn't actually like great matchups, if I remember correctly, as to where they went off. So with Hooper, I'm going to let other people be that roster bomb, right? I'm going to let other people pick him up, spend a ton of fab on him, play him, and then end up with a 0. Now, he does have Cincinnati this week, so I can understand how it's very, very enticing. But, yeah, for Hooper, man, I just don't know when he's going to produce. So I'm not going to be all over that roster. I'm not going to be all over that waiver wire ad. So if you guys are still here, which you're probably not, but if you're still here, I'm going to go over a few of these questions with you guys. But before I do, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys want to check us out, go to FF_intervention on Twitter. Make sure you guys check out our link tree, linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. Now, I won't be able to get to a ton of these questions, but we do have Dynasty Vipers on with us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. So make sure you guys tune into that. Make sure you guys hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you guys are watching on Facebook, make sure you guys pay attention to fantasy football discussion in that group. And then on Periscope, make sure you guys hit us up and give us a follow on Twitter. So I am going to go through a few of these questions and try to hammer them out, but I do got to get out of here. So one of the guys wants to know Stafford or Carr moving forward. And I love Derek Carr. I think that Derek Carr is a smash play, but Stafford always has that upside. So when it comes to ceiling, right? And by the way, guys, I don't have these matchups in front of me. That's why I'm saying wait for tomorrow night when we actually do the research and we're ready to talk about this upcoming week. Tune back in because you're probably going to get 10 times better advice. I could say Carr right now, who I'm leaning towards, but that might completely change once I actually study the matchups and study the upcoming lineup. So these questions are best served tomorrow night. Now, I'm going to lean Carr over Stafford, but it's very, very close to me for me. Do you drop Singletary, Gordon, or Cam Newton for a kicker since Tucker is on bye? Depends on who your quarterback is. Cam Newton had a little bit of a dud this past week to an extent. Oh, no, he put up like 28 points. He was solid. Singletary's good. I hate kickers, man. I hate kickers. I'm going to lean towards no. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you would do. I might even take the loss so you don't have to drop those guys. Or try and trade 2 for 1 and upgrade at a position. All right, Boston Scott, is he worth a start on Thursday? Yes, he is, absolutely. All right, cool. I think we covered all that. All right, guys, that's going to close us out. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for letting me intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.